it's a living organism. It's a marketplace. It's an exchange of ideas. It's an exchange of food. It's a town hall. We operate about 2,700 individual markets each year. About 26 of our markets operate year round. Union Square is the largest. The 1.8 acres of parkland support about 23,000 acres of farmland. There's nothing like it in the world. I've been to markets all over the world and all over the country. Union Square is special. And on a September day, when it's not COVID, over 400,000 people walk through that marketplace. There's 12,000 ingredients there. There's over 75, 85 farmers there. And it comes to life.
Welcome to the first episode in Season 6 of Talk Farm to Me. It's a series that's focused on the farmers at the Greenmarket in Union Square in New York City. During the season, we'll be talking with the farmers who sell there. They come from 7 different states and all different backgrounds, and they produce over 12,000 ingredients. But today, we're meeting with some of the people who govern the market, who manage the market, and think about how the market can be a vibrant space for commerce, community, and an exchange of goods and ideas. Farmers are selling here. Producers of cheese and bread and jam are selling here too. Chefs and home cooks and eaters are buying here. And there is so much more. So much more. Today you will meet Grow NYC's Director of Greenmarkets, Food Access and Agriculture, Michael Hurwitz. He wears a lot of hats. A more than 14-year veteran of the organization, Michael really sets the tone and vision for Union Square's Greenmarket and 51 other New York City markets. You will also meet the Union Square Greenmarket manager, Aquilino Cabral. He is up at dawn every day, rain or shine, making sure that park space on the north and west sides of Union Square between 14th and 17th Streets are ready for farmers and other producers 4 days a week, 52 weeks a year. Both Michael and Aquilino provide a very unique perspective on the market, from its history to its day-to-day, as well as the foundation for its profound and still emerging impact. Let's start with Grow NYC's Director of Greenmarkets, Director of Food Access and Agriculture, Michael Hurwitz.
I really do have the best job in the world. Our program it's so robust, right? So we, for the past 46 years, have been operating retail farmers markets. We work with about 240 producers and have 52 retail sites throughout the 5 boroughs. It's a weird region from New York City. It's about 120 miles to the south and 250 miles to the north and 170 miles east and west. And our fish comes from the mid-Atlantic waters. There's a fishing region. And it's really about our 2-part mission, and all the other programs and models that flow are about supporting a viable regional farm system and farmer profitability and making sure that New Yorkers have equitable access to what's produced in that region. And it's great that you're talking to a national audience, because at our markets, Union Square even, there are 6 states that are represented there. New York, in our program overall, probably about 70% of our farmers are coming from New York State, and then Jersey and Pennsylvania, but Vermont, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. Our products grown in those states are sold in our markets. And if it can be grown or harvested or raised or caught in our region, there are over 12,000 individual variety of product that's sold throughout the year at Union Square. And it's the farmers, it's the farm workers that are selling directly to the consumer. We have a very strict producer-only model.
Just a note here, producer-only model. It's a concept that's at the core of the Union Square Greenmarket. Michael's going to talk about this again, but for now, let's just say if you grow it, raise it, catch it, or make it from what you grow, you can sell it. I'm oversimplifying. You'll see. Nothing's simple.
We know that food is such a unifier and a bridge, and it brings people together. It gets people talking and excited and talking about their own backgrounds, their own recipes and customs and cultures. And of course, we see that at market, and we see that at market still. These are vital lifelines for our farmers. Even before COVID, I'd say about 90% of our farmers would have told you then that relying on the wholesale market, they'd be out of business. And but for the direct access to the consumer, their farms are able to survive. And then for community members, right, having that vital lifeline to this regionally produced bounty. And then the connections that are formed there between, like we hear about the urban and rural divide. Well, we've studied that impact, the social impact, and the intellectual exchange between farmers bringing their knowledge into the city and then taking knowledge that they glean from city residents back home, and how that impacts how they grow and what they grow. We actually partnered with Cornell and Colorado State, and they did a comprehensive analysis, both at market, engaging with customers, and then on farm, engaging our farmers, and did a intellectual wealth analysis between how information flows back and forth and how it influences decision-making, both on farm and then in the wider rural community, and also in the city amongst New York City shoppers.
And the findings were?
That these relationships influence decision-making and how people view one another, right? And it breaks down barriers of what it means to live in the city. And it's funny, when our founders in 1975 were driving around and trying to convince farmers to drive into the city to sell products. Farmers, like, I'm not going to New York City. Are you out of your mind? And, between city folks really not understanding where food comes from, but also having all kinds of preconceived notions about rural communities and farm communities, these markets obviously break down those barriers. But it's also, we've had some conventional growers that now are using green manure and cover cropping and using much more integrated pest management, because that's what they know their consumers want. And they're learning about new products that they want to bring to market and they never even thought of. Going back to our mission, it's farmer profitability. So gaining access to a marketplace that someone may not be able to get to, and making sure that those products are represented and that the New York consumer has access to them. But we take our inspections very seriously, and the overwhelming majority of our farmers really appreciate that and want there to be a real compliance component to this.
So explain inspections to me.
Because we are that producer-only marketplace, and we want a very transparent and traceable market, it starts with when you apply to participate. We want a crop plan. If you're new, we want a county agent or a Cornell Cooperative Extension agent to vouch for the fact that you have land in production. And we'll send out an on-farm inspector once we know that things will be in operation. So you may apply in February. We're not going to send an inspector out in February because we're not going to be able to see anything growing, depending on the product. But come July, we'll come visit and we'll walk the farm. We'll match what is growing with what was submitted on that crop plan and those maps. And occasionally we'll do audits at market to make sure that the numbers all match up. And it can be cumbersome. And we know that it is an annoyance to a farmer who has been up for all night long and working all week to come to market. But again, they appreciate and understand that this is part of maintaining the integrity of that marketplace. It allows us to have baselines of what's being sold through market and be able to communicate to policymakers and to customers. Most importantly, it means that you can't have a broker come in and set up a stall, right? We don't want brokers. We don't want resellers. We want farmers. We want fishermen and fisherwomen. We want bakers who are baking the products that they're bringing in.
what are some of the other rules for getting into Union Square Market? What do you have to do as a farmer?
My God, I'll send you our rules and you'll see how confusing and convoluted they are. But they're actually an example of a 46-year-old program that works with its farmer community. We have a farmer and consumer advisory committee that we work to create our rules with, that both reflect the realities of agriculture in our region and also what we aspire for agriculture in our region to look like. So sure, we'd like 100% of our cheese to come from the farm that's producing the milk. But we know that is not reasonable in terms of dairy production. You have to be a farmer to be at market, and you have to produce 60% of the milk of the raw variety that's going into the cheese. And you can buy in 40% from a neighboring farm. So again, supporting mission, bringing product into market, supporting that farm, that neighboring farm. If it's fluid dairy, it has to be 100% from your herd. If it's a mixed milk, cow and goat cheese, you can buy in 20% from your neighboring farm. We're constantly looking to evaluate our rules. There was a rule that did not allow for off-farm processing. So if you wanted to bring jam and jelly and chutneys and tomato sauce into market, you had to have the infrastructure on farm and all the recipes and do it yourself. Well, it's hard enough to be a direct market farmer, right? You have to be an incredible grower. You have to then post-harvest and transport that product perfectly to market. You then have to understand how to market it and distribute it and do customer service. And then you're doing all the bookkeeping and accounting for your farm. Those are 6 or 7 jobs alone that I just named that one person in one business is required for. So to do processing really well, it just didn't make sense. And it also limited agricultural opportunity in the region, right? And so again, from a mission perspective, we worked with our farmer community and said, we're going to change this rule. The great example I use is during Hurricane Irene, when a lot of our farmers were significantly impacted and saw some of their crops be devastated. Well, they were able to rescue some of their tomatoes and send them off to be processed into tomato sauce. And so rather than having an absolute loss, they were able to generate new revenues. And New Yorkers were able to have access to black dirt tomato sauce. And that's the extreme example. But the reality is it created whole new product lines for farmers, it's season extension, that is new income models, it's diversification. It's what we talk about being so important for farmers to be successful.
Let's talk about the finances a little bit, because I know that you all are very keen on making sure that your farmers can produce and be earning a living. That's a lot of what I hear from farmers right now, is that that's one of the hardest things, is that, farming has always been a tough job. It's a job that people love, but unlike their parents' generation, even just one generation removed, making a living at farming is getting harder and harder. And so you guys obviously have a role there, but I'm curious about the financials on all sides.
Sure. I think it also depends on the type of agriculture and why it's getting harder and harder. I think if you're a dairy farmer, you're seeing consolidation, and there's money to be made in dairy, just not if the money's not flowing to the farmer. It's flowing to the big agribusiness. There are record profits in food for the Cargills, the ADMs, and the ConAgras of the world. And we know that food has been consolidated, and that 4 companies control 90% of the grain trade, 70% of the pork trade, and farmers are the ones who are getting squeezed out. And in the 50s, farmers took home over 40 cents of the food dollar. And now they're lucky if it's 15 cents of the food dollar, if we're talking about wholesale. And it's why retail markets are so important, but they're hard too, right? And it's why we actually have staff on that helps our farmers identify their consumers' behavior and help them market their products and create online platforms and to create new mechanisms for sales and to better understand their financials and their market channel assessments and what the labor costs are per product that's coming to market. So they really understand their profitability. But farming is a business. And it's not like you can throw up a folding card table and throw some local product on it and go home at the end of the day having sold everything out, because there are so many more opportunities and there's so much more competition now. And like I said before, it's why it's so hard, is because you have to be good at it all. And so we recognize that part of our job is to help market that product and help engage and help create a reason for people to come to market.
So they take home all of the money that they collect in a day. They sell their asparagus and their strawberries, they're selling bread, all of that money goes to them, and they pay the marketplace a fee.
Correct. On space that they take.
And what's kind of the range for a fee for a farmer?
This is by a 10 by 10 stand. It ranges from $50 to, I think, $120. And if you take more than 3 spaces, every 10 by 10 after the third space, we charge 1.5 times.
Are there a lot of farmers with more than one space?
Most of our farmers take more than one space.
Tell me about your governance.
Grow NYC is a quasi-governmental agency, which means that we were born out of mayoral decree. Mayor Lindsay created us because he wanted there to be a think tank at the time that could operate outside of city bureaucracy. And over time, we really evolved from the Council on the Environment of New York City to a very programmatic, focused nonprofit. Our mission is about keeping farms and farm businesses thriving while maintaining a safe and viable marketplace and a welcoming community. We want farmers to be successful. We want New Yorkers to be happy. And we want to turn sidewalk space into thriving community centers and centers of food commerce.
One of the challenges of being a farmer and making money is actually getting started. This challenge represents an opportunity for any region. In order to have a vibrant regional food network, new farmers have to join the ranks of older and retiring farmers. When I said Union Square Greenmarket was so much more, this is one of the ways. It's just that.
For the last 21 years, we've offered a beginning farmer program. And for the first, I think, 14 years, it was working with exclusively immigrants from Latin American countries that came to the United States with extensive farming knowledge, but didn't know how to get into agriculture here in the Northeast. So our model was financial literacy training to start a farm business, and then access to markets. We ran a zero interest microloan fund, so access to startup capital, and we would support those farmers getting onto land. And in 2014, we surveyed our larger farmer body and realized that about 40% of our farmers were going to retire in the next 15 years. And of that 40%, they didn't have an identified successor to that farm business. So we sort of expanded our reach for beginning farmer and opened it up to any city farmer that really wanted to scale and grow food for market, focusing again on populations that had been marginalized throughout the years through the farming community: African Americans, immigrants, veterans, women, the LGBTQ community. About 85% of our graduates are reflective of those communities and have started farm businesses. But also see our retiring farmers as potential mentors, and that farmland as potential access for these beginning farmers, because we know affordability for farmland is such a challenge. So we're trying to do that matchmaking and how we can funnel some to keep the land in agriculture, how we can bring funding to that retiring farmer who is dependent on their land for retirement, and then at the same time bridge to get those beginning farmers onto that land in an affordable manner.
We will come back to Michael with some closing thoughts in a bit, but let's zoom in for a minute. Union Square Greenmarket operates 4 days a week: Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. Each day is a Herculean feat of operations. Farmers come in from outside the city. They set up, customers come, they sell their products, pack up, and go home. Sounds easy, right? Not so easy. But thankfully, Grow NYC has Green Market manager Aquilino Cabral and the team he manages to make the weekly market days work like clockwork. The Union Square Greenmarket is the common thread for season 6 of Talk Farm to Me, and it's important to understand how it works in order to understand the stage that the farmers we will meet share. So let's get to know Aquilino Cabral and the Union Square Greenmarket from his unique perspective. You've been in this job for 2.5 years?
Yes, correct.
Wow. And one of those years has been full-on pandemic.
Yes.
Wow. So not what you expected.
Not at all. It definitely changed the way that the market was ran, and it definitely changed the way that shopper shop at the market, and it definitely affected farmers in ways that I don't think they were expecting to be affected. Whole setup change, social distancing, controlling the crowd as they enter the market. In some cases, not having able to invite all producers to attend because we didn't have the space. Farmers dealing with all the city restaurants being closed. It really made us rethink the way that we did business. But in a way, it also made us see that there's always a possibility when there's a will. There's always a way when there's a will. And I think that's one of the things that we took from this, that the changes that we made for this year, we don't know if we're ever going to go back to how we were doing market before, because it just created more open space. It just created more opportunities for people to just be able to shop freely, not be on top of each other. From our experience and talking to customers, it made the shopping experience more fun and more enjoyable because not everyone is jammed into one space.
Tell me about some of the changes you made. I know distancing is one, but you mentioned something about crowd flow.
So at the beginning during the pandemic, the market space became one of those spaces where people were able to come in and gather and chat for to say the least. So the city was not happy with the amount of crowd that was gathering at market. We used to have 4 different entrances, and what we used to do was just keep the max of people to about 300 at a time. So we kept a system where it was 1 in, 1 out at each entrance. And there was time where we had a 45 minutes wait for people to come into the market. But we were able to control the crowd. We were able to keep minimum people at the market at once. But we eliminated the possibility of walkers shopping. So basically the people only entering the market was people that were there to shop. And now the passerby that were just, stopping and seeing something to interest. So farmers lost a lot of money in that sense, based on the fact that they were not able to gather people that were just walking by that were impressed with the product that they bring to market.
How did that affect your relationship with the farmers? Were they complaining?
Well, our main goal always been a market to make sure that the farmers, shoppers, and staffs are safe. And what our main goal was always to make sure that we kept the market open. It was one of the only assets that many of these farmers had, or outlet to sell. So our goal was just to make sure that we kept it open, even if it meant, selling out a 30% capacity, but it was still an outlet to be able to bring the stuff that was still coming out of the ground. Because the reality is that the product that were already planted that was not affected by the pandemic, they were coming out of the ground and they needed to have a space where they're able to be, given to the community. So the green market, that was the main focus, was making sure that shoppers, farmers, and staff were safe, and that we are able to keep the market open for the long term, not just for a day or two. So farmers adjusted. Farmers always will complain. It's just the nature of the job, and I always tell farmers, I like when you come to me and you tell me the reasons why we should do things different, because at the end, you need to fight for your business. And we're here to work as a team. And if you're not fighting for your business, who's going to fight for you? So I actually appreciate when a farmer comes up to me and tell me, I would like this to change, because it might be I'm seeing from my point of view. I also want to see it from their point of view. So it's actually, we had very interesting conversation. They always have suggestions on how we should do things. And many of those suggestions were taken place and incorporated.
Before you started this job 2.5 years ago, how many farmers did you know?
Not many. I did not come from a background of farming. I'm a social worker by profession. I did 10 years at Columbia University working with college students. So my background has nothing to do with farmers. I come up from the countryside of the Dominican Republic. I was born and raised in the Dominican Republic. And when I lived with my grandparents, everything that we ate, we grew. So that's been always the backbone of me, where I actually missed doing this type of work, it brings me back to my roots, and it makes me think a lot of my grandparents and how they raised us, having our own chickens, having our own eggs. Everything that we ate was basically fresh from the ground. So it brings me back to that time, and it was like the best time of my life.
Aquilino spent 10 years helping college students get access to quality education. He also had his own supermarket in Brooklyn at one point. But you can feel it. He's kind, he's a listener, he's a natural helper.
It's all about helping, and I think I'm in the helping profession. And the minute that I'm able to just help someone either get into the market or increase their sale, or just talk about things, so marketing and strategy that we could do differently at market, it's helping. And the fact that New York City is basically not known to have healthy food, being able to be at the market and promote the market and bring people from Brooklyn, from the Bronx into Union Square and see all the possibilities that they could get is amazing. A lot of people feel that it's too expensive. A lot of people feel that it's only cash. But the fact that we have EBT, that they get the health box with the EBT, and that it's accessible. And it's basically stuff that's been picked up from the ground the night before that is coming to market the next day. And that has no price.
I've heard from more than a few listeners that their perception of the customers at the Union Square Greenmarket in New York City is that they are predominantly wealthy. Aquilino explains EBT to us and the role that it plays at the Union Square Greenmarket.
EBT is electronic benefit transfer. It's basically what it used to be known as food stamp. Now it's all electronically with a card. Back in the days, I don't know if you remember, but back in the days, people have to have it used to be a different currency, paper money, basically, in denomination of 2, 5, and 10. And people, I believe that in a way it had a stigma to it that you were shopping with this type of money. Now you can go with a credit card and you get your tokens, especially at market, or you could go with your EBT card and you get your token as well. So it doesn't have the stigma that you're actually buying with with government benefits or food stamp, as we call it.
This is a really important topic, the market's ability to accept SNAP benefits, which stands for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. I want to let Michael explain Grow NYC's efforts on this program. It is a very successful program because they want it to be, both at market, as Aquilino described, and behind the scenes too. Here's our discussion. As a consumer, I'm not sure that those messages, like understanding that there is that big amount of money that's kind of on the table that could be spent through a farmer's market, that doesn't just have the benefit of feeding that family with, like you said, culturally relevant food, healthy food, clean food, but also supporting the farmer. Tell me a little bit more about the program and how people understand that and the different elements of that, because that's a really important part of what you do.
We do a lot of outreach, and we have a great partner in the Department of Health and the City of New York. We make sure that we are pounding the pavement, that we are presenting in senior centers and WIC offices. We are constantly reminding people that there is no shopper that is not welcome at market. We wave our flags high and wide. Every one of our farmers is actually required to accept the various mechanisms of payment. We created our own Green Market buck. We are now working with Health First and Metro Plus, 2 insurance companies, and providing bucks to their Medicare and Medicaid populations. So using the power of their media to spread the word. We want to expand the availability and accessibility of our markets.
Pay close attention to this next part. There's math, the kind of math that really matters.
Because we also know that every dollar that's spent using SNAP or these purchase supports is between a 79 and 81 cent multiplier for our regional economy. So this is the best small stimulus you can ask for. Those dollars are spent in our region and locally and hyper locally. And they are vital lifelines for both consumers and farmers. We have some markets that have been around since 1977, where 80% of what the farmer makes is between SNAP Health Bucks, Farmers Market Nutrition Program, and our other currencies, and cash is secondary. Those are thriving, robust marketplaces. Even Union Square, actually, people think of it as the foodie market. It's our largest redeemer of SNAP and Health Bucks in our entire network. And I think the third largest in the country. There are hundreds of thousands of dollars every year spent in SNAP at Union Square alone. And there is no SNAP shopper. There is no cash shopper. You'll never be able to anticipate what someone looks like. Again, it is the diversity of New York City that is utilizing all of these various mechanisms to shop and market.
I hope this part is sinking in. Shoppers on government assistance shop at Union Square Greenmarket. The assistance dollars that they get help them. They help the farmers. They help you. And Grow NYC works tirelessly to get those dollars into the market. I'm going to keep thinking about this part of the green market that I didn't really realize was there. I hope that we'll come back to it in a future episode too. Let's get back to Aquilino. What can you tell me about farmers as a breed?
Well, they are passionate. One of the things I say about farmers is that they are passionate. Every time I go and speak to any farmers market, their passion for what they're growing, the passion for what they're doing is the first thing that I notice in them. They could go on hours and hours about their growing practices. They're talking about equipment that they bought. They are talking about things that they are planting this season. They are so excited for it to start coming out of the ground so they could bring to market. So passion, it's one of those things that I always say that all the farmers that I've encountered at Union Square have. And it's one of those things that I feel that make them stronger. And we connect because I'm also very passionate about the work that I do, because I feel if you are not connected to the job that you do, you're going to be miserable. And you see these farmers, even on a bad day, they're happy. Yeah, so that's one thing I've noticed about the farmers, that they are passionate, they fight for what they want. And let me tell you, they have no problem in being pushy.
I love that. Now, so that passion, does that spill over into their interaction and relationships with their customers?
100%. One of the things that I always tell customers, like one of the things that is very unique to the market is that I'll say about 75% of the stands are managed by the owners, by the farmers themselves. So if you have a question about how these potatoes are being grown, how this tomato was grown, you could actually ask the farmers. Some have stand managers because they there's only so much, they cannot be in another market at the same time. But customers are able to go have these conversations with the farmers themselves and gather information that they need to know. Because at the end of the day, there's a lot of people with dietary restrictions that want to know what they're putting in their bodies. So being able to talk to the farmers themselves, and let me tell you, farmers always take the time to speak with the customers. Farmers love to talk about their growing practices, what they're growing and how they're doing it.
What are some good questions to ask a farmer?
Me personally, being at Union Square 4 days a week, I always tend to just ask the same question. I always like to know what are they bringing to the market this season? What are they growing that they didn't bring last year to the market this season? I'm always curious to find out when strawberries are going to be coming up, when rams are going to be coming up. So I always like to ask farmers, I like to call them goodies. When are your goodies coming to market? Because they all have their money makers. So it's always good to know when to expect them.
Every day at market is different. Different farmers, different setups, different New Yorkers, maybe a protest, definitely some panhandlers, rain, cancellations, life on the street. And guess who handles it?
So it's a team effort. I'm the main contact person for Union Square. And what we do assignments once a year. So basically when I say assignment, is the farmers need to submit an application every year. So basically farmers that have already been assigned Union Square typically get reinstated every year. And then there's farmers that drop for X and Y reasons. So there's open opportunity for someone else to come in. Then we have 4 days at Union Square. Saturday being the busiest and the most demand from farmers wanting to get it in on a Saturday. Monday is very calm where the foot traffic is low. So even though we do have space, we don't want to pack the market as we will pack it on a Saturday because the foot traffic is not high enough to accommodate 90 plus farmers. So typically on Monday, we have about anywhere between 20 to 35 farmers. And we try to be as diversified as possible, meaning that we don't want to have 5 tomato growers on a Monday. On a Saturday, we probably can, and we do. We have 5 or 6 people selling tomato, but we have over 400,000 people walking the market on a Saturday. On a Monday, we might have only 100,000.
Did you hear that? On a light day, there are only 100,000 visitors to the market.
So the foot traffic actually determine how many people we feel that we could safely bring in without affecting the sales of another farmer. So when we do the assignment, we take all of that into consideration: who's there, who's dropping out, who stopped growing this item. We restrict what they're able to bring to market on any given day. Yes, you could bring, for example, tomatoes, cherry tomatoes, but you cannot bring plum tomatoes because we have too many of them. So, and that's very helpful in the sense that we still able to give this farmer an opportunity to be Union Square as with restriction, but it opens the door for them to be able to be at Union Square. And then if a tomato that was selling similar to them drops out or decide that they're not doing the market any longer, then it opens the opportunity for them to go full blown on what they're growing.
Are you getting the feeling that this is a little bit like three-dimensional chess with several boards playing all at once? Well, I am. And I was at the market last week, and when I was there, I met a farmer who had milk and eggs on his table, and while we were talking, he told me, well, yeah, we raise pork too, but I'm not allowed to sell it here. So you see, it's going to be very interesting when we get started talking with farmers. Tell me about your customers.
Wow, Union Square customers. I have to say that they keep the market going. I feel the fact that we are a Union Square makes a big difference in a way of how items are priced, what producers bring to the market. I feel that there's certain items at market that will not sell well out of the market, but because we are a Union Square, farmers are able to bring, duck, rabbit, and all these other items that are quite pricey per the pound that in some market might not do as well. So I feel that we have the best customers. We do have a lot of questions. We do have a lot of concerns. People that have very high expectations of what they're expecting on market. So from time to time, we do get customers that might not be happy with the way an item is presented on market. Let's say, for example, we have farmers that don't wash their product before they come to market. It's, they pull from the ground, the roots were cut, and it's presented this way to the customers. As opposed, we have other farmers that have washing stations where everything that comes off the ground go through this process of being washed, being prepared, being packed, and it comes out like if it were you buying it from a box store. So some customer might not understand the reason why this farmer is bringing dirty vegetables to the market. And, this is a question that I love to answer because I always say, listen, you're getting things that were just pulled off from the ground. And, this is the way that this farmer wants you to see his product and see how fresh the product are, and it's, we don't control that. And as long as it's safe and it's approved by the committee that it's okay for farmers to bring their product like that, why not? That's what makes Union Square so unique and so special.
Some of your producers are coming 4 and 5 hours to get to the market. Tell me a little bit about the spectrum of travel for your farmers.
We have people coming from as far as back as the Finger Lakes. We have people coming as far out as Vermont on a regular market day, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania. From my conversation with them, they wake up at 12 midnight, start driving around 12:30 to get to market around 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning.
I really want to share with people what a day in the life looks like. And I don't think there's a better person to share that than you.
Yeah, the Union Square at 5 in the morning is completely different from what it is at 8 in the morning. That 3-hour difference, that's the time that we start our day at Union Square at 5 in the morning. We start with chalking our space. Every day of the market is different when it comes to chalking. Every single inch of the plaza has been measured and put into a Google spreadsheet that I create and that my ops opener will design it on the plaza. So my ops opener will get there at 5 in the morning. They start chalking each producer space. On a Saturday, like I said, we have 90 plus producers, all with unique setup. There's a producer that might be taking 30 feet. There's a producer that might be taking 5 feet. There's a producer that might only be taking 0.75, which is about 7 to 8 feet. Then we have the social distancing that we need to keep in mind, that we want to keep anywhere between 6 and 8 feet of space. So it's a logistic nightmare setting up the market. Once I get on a corner, I see my market that is straight up, straight lines, producers are set up, tents are up, people are shopping. It's like, wow, another great day at Union Square. So by 8 o'clock, everyone is set up. Now we are working on controlling the perimeter. So we have 400,000 people walking in it per day. How do we keep someone from driving through the market and hurting people? So what we do is we start moving trucks into the entrances. So the entrances are blocked. So we start moving barricades into the entrance to prevent anyone from accidentally driving onto the plaza, which we had people following GPS that tell them to continue going straight on 16th Street through the park. So we secure the perimeter to make sure that people have a very safe experience at market. And after that, we start working on publicity. What items we're going to put on our publicity page to encourage people to come. There's nothing more beautiful than opening the Union Square Greenmarket Instagram and seeing these beautiful items that are at market that day. By this time already, by 8 o'clock, EBT, which is our transaction information station, is set up and going. We have staff working the market. And right now, our team of up opener and up closer are walking the market, making sure that products are safely stored and presented at market. We need to make sure that the meat is staying frozen. We need to make sure that the eggs are staying below 40 degrees. We want to make sure that the cheese is staying below 37 degrees as well. So now we start our compliance component of the market and our safety check. Are the tents properly tied down? Are vehicles running on the plaza when they're not supposed to be? Are pastry, baker goods, are they covered from any things that could come from the air and fall on top of them? Are farmers wearing gloves? Are farmers wearing masks? Are customers keeping 6 feet apart when they're in line? So we go around the whole market checking on all these items to make sure that every producer is in compliance with our rules. Once we do compliance, now we do a morning check-in. All my staff would check in at 10:30 near the info tent just to go over the day. By this time, my ops closer, people that close the market already have arrived at market. So now we are transitioning from the up openers that were there from 5 in the morning. We are transitioning to the ops closer that will be there until the market will close. One thing we take very seriously is that you can only bring to market what you've been approved to bring to market. We do inspection of the farm on a regular basis as well to make sure that what you bring into market is what you're growing. We don't want to see any producer bringing oranges to the market, as we know that we cannot grow oranges on this side of the country. So we do a product compliance update throughout the day just to make sure that what producers are selling is items that have been approved to be sold market. So this will bring it close to now 4 o'clock, when is the time where the producer gets to start packing up and leave the market. There's no driving on the plaza unless you are being escorted by a market manager. And we want to make sure that we get everyone out safely. So they need to be escorted by a market manager with a whistle, making sure that dogs, people, and everything's out of the way so that we could get these farmers back home as soon as possible. So farmers are allowed to start leaving at 4, but they have until 7 to be completed out of the plaza. By 7 o'clock, my ops closers are doing their final check-in, making sure the plaza is in a better shape than when we found it in the morning, making sure that all the barricades that we move into the entrances are back in a secure location. And our goal is that we don't leave until every farmer is on their way home. I feel that every day that I wake up thinking that, you know what, it's going to be a great day for the farmers. They're going to have a good day. They're going to make money, and they're going to take this money and continue planting, continue seeding, so they can continue coming to market.
I want to go back to Michael for a minute before we end this episode for the day. After 14 plus years, Michael Hurwitz, Grow NYC's director of Greenmarkets, is moving on. But his vision for what's possible is alluring, and I hope it inspires you too. Talk Farm to Me has some pretty big goals and ideas. How do we amplify farm issues? How do you think about food once you know a little bit more about who grows or raises it? What are the big issues that impact you personally that you didn't know existed? Talk Farm to Me wants to be intentional about finding hot buttons and shining a light on them.
That's the word that I was just going to say if you hadn't said it. You have to be intentional. about making these connections. They don't just happen, right? And so if you want to build these bridges, you have to provide the opportunities for that to happen. And whether it's physical or whether it's what you're doing, they're not going to happen on their own. Nothing happens on its own, right? And so when you're talking about getting new farmers onto land, when you're talking about diversifying what our farmers look like, when you're talking about getting farmland into Black and brown hands like it once was, when you're talking about supporting retiring farmers, when you're talking about building systems, it doesn't just happen, right? The way our current system looks happens because of that intentionality. So we have to be as intentional on the other end to build these bridges and to create these opportunities.
So let's just talk for a second about our opportunity together. You have all of this amazing stuff that you do, and I have a microphone. And what I want to do is amplify what's happening at the market. I want to do it from, sort of the big picture by talking with you and Aquilino and your advisory folks, but also from, a personal story one-on-one with a farmer. And I'm just curious what you think we can do together. What do we want to get listeners to really understand? I mean, they show up at the market, they're looking for some lettuce. Then they got to get home and put it in a salad. From your perspective, what do you think that we can achieve?
I think it's important for people to understand, like I said, that markets don't just happen and food just doesn't appear, right? And that there are, with the 240 farmers we have, it's probably 10,000 stories behind them, right? Of people who came from another country and drove a livery cab, or someone who came from another country and at age 13 and harvested lettuce until at age 18, they found our beginning farmer program. 75% of our farm laborers Latino, but only 3% of the farm managers Latino. And the land is owned only 2%. And same thing about Black land ownership. Why is it that our dairies are going out of business, even though there is record profit? People don't understand these issues. And I think there are a lot of progressives out there that don't understand why food matters at all. They're woke on every other issue, but don't understand how their food dollars either support what they're trying to tear down or can support what they're trying to lift up. And I think it's important to have, if you're having a national conversation, for people to learn across region and to understand where there's success in other places, and that no model has to be the same, but that we are collectively advocating for the same issues. And we can do that.
I hope that by now you are feeling the so much more part of Grow NYC and the Union Square Greenmarket. I mean, having the opportunity to understand the behind the scenes here and all of the thought that has gone into it over the past 46 years really sets us up for a fascinating season of Talk Farm to Me. In the next episode, we are going to meet Sharon Burns-Leader. She's the co-founder of the illustrious Bread Alone Bakery and a longtime member of Grow NYC's Farmer and Community Advisory Committee. I'm so excited to share our conversation with you. We cover so much territory. I know it's going to make you think even more deeply about what's going on in this 3 city block square where farmers and producers come 4 times a week. I know I keep saying this. It's so much more. I want to thank Grow NYC's entire team, and especially their Green Market Director, Michael Hurwitz, and Union Square Greenmarket Manager, Aquilino Cabral, for all that they have shared with me behind the scenes and in these conversations. Can you do me a favor? Share this episode with someone you know. Help me get more people to come along on this fascinating farmer adventure. Farmers in New York City. What an amazing contrast. If you're looking for show notes, a transcript of the episode, or other episodes from seasons 1 through 5, check out talkfarmtome.com. There's a new button on the homepage that will give you some episodes by category. I'm your host, Farm Girl, Follow me on Instagram for additional content related and completely unrelated to the podcast. You can also find Talk Farm to Me on Instagram at Talk Farm to Me. Stay tuned for the next episode featuring Sharon Burns, leader of Bread Alone. Coming soon.